Recently, I discovered a great method to improve my health span. And this method also reduces all causes of mortality by up to 40%. That sounds amazing. But what is health span? Health span, as opposed to lifespan, is the length of your life when you're actually healthy. So basically, it's an improvement in the quality of your life. And if you want to keep gardening like I do for a long time, you want a good health span. I found out there's a period in your life between the age of 50 and 70, which is called Sniper's Alley. And in this period, you're more likely to get hit by a disease or health issues far more than you are in any other time of your life. And sadly, a lot of my friends' experiences actually bear this out. I've just discovered the massive health benefits of using a sauna from Eric Dyer, a client of mine who's an England and Spurs footballer. He is absolutely evangelical about saunas, and he finds they're superb to help muscle recovery after he's been playing a game or whatever, and it really gives him other benefits as well. I did use a proper sauna once and I really did not like it, but then a client of mine introduced me to the portable sauna blanket. Now this heats the body up using far infrared rays in a similar way to a sauna, and it has many of the same benefits. So in my sauna blanket, the heat healer, what you do is you actually put it on for 15 minutes to warm up, and then you stay in it for up to a further 60 minutes. And what happens is the infrared rays actually penetrate your body. Now, many people I've spoken to hate using traditional saunas. They hate getting their head in the steam in the sauna. But with these blankets, you actually lie in them with your head out. And what's more is you can control the heat, which is, I think, a really good plus point. And so they have many of the benefits of a traditional sauna. Another option is a sauna dome. Now, Furzone make their sauna dome, and this, like the blanket, you lie in, so you're much more comfortable than sitting up. And again, your head is out of the heat, out of the dome, but you still benefit from a full body heat. There has been a mass of research on the benefits of sauna. A lot of it's been done by Dr Sarah Myhill from the University of Eastern Finland. He's been carrying out research for over 20 years on them, and he has found really amazing health benefits. If you want to see his research papers, if you put into Google Scholar, which is the scientific search engine, and you put in Dr. Sarah Myhill and saunas, you will see many of the papers that he's had published on this. So some of these benefits are Alzheimer's and dementia. You will get something like a 60 to 60% reduction in these if you have 4 to 7 visits to a sauna per week. If you use the sauna 4 to 7 times a week, you'll have approximately 40% lower risk of having a stroke. Cardiovascular health, 4 to 7 times a week, again, 63% you're less likely to experience sudden cardiac death. With hypertension, the risk is reduced by 46%, again, if you have 4 to 7 visits to the sauna a week. Rheumatoid arthritis, there's a reduction in stiffness and fatigue, and it also reduces inflammation. So the benefits are stunning. So there's lots of evidence that saunas really are beneficial to your health. But what about sauna blankets and sauna domes? Are they as good? I couldn't find any research on these on the internet, or very little, but I chatted to Dr Sarah Myhill. She's been using infrared sauna blankets and domes for her clients for many, many years, and she's had fantastic results. And if you want to see a copy of her book, Ecological Medicine, I highly recommend reading it. So Sarah, it's been fascinating reading the bits of work that you've sent me. So you obviously treat a lot of your patients with far infrared heat. Yes. And I've been reading the masses of research out there on traditional saunas, which get you up to quite a high temperature, don't you? Something like 78 degrees, or they get up to. How do you think the sauna blankets and the sauna domes compare to those? Because there's very little research work on those.
Well, the point is you don't have to get very hot to get the desirable effect of sauna. And the desirable effect of sauna is twofold. First of all, it's the effect of far infrared directly on blood vessels and circulation. And secondly, it's the ability of that heat, that far infrared, to remove toxins from the patient. So it doesn't, so my patients I see are usually very ill. They're very sick. They cannot tolerate high temperature saunas. And so the reason why the far infrared is so good is because it's low temperature, just as effective, but they can tolerate that fine.
And if they can tolerate higher temperatures, I think my blanket goes up to something like 70 degrees, the one I've been using for the last 6 weeks. And I find at the end of that period, I'm dying to get out of the bag. For the first sort of 40 minutes, it's perfect. And then you'll think, oh my God, can I get out? But you feel you should stay in to do more good. Is that correct?
No, it isn't. The most detoxing takes place in the first few minutes of heating, because the way that the toxins come out is the far infrared warms up the subcutaneous fat. And the pesticides, the volatile organic compounds that are in that fat, they literally evaporate off, they boil off onto the lipid layer on the surface of the skin, and then you shower off. So the washing off is as important as the sauning.
I see. So even if I'm not actually sweating, or should we say perspiring, it's still doing me good.
Correct. You don't have to sweat for it to be effective, because these toxins are fat soluble. They don't come out in sweat. And again, many of my patients don't tolerate the sweating at all well. So that gentle heat for the first 10 or 15 minutes is all that you need to start pulling out those toxins. And then, of course, you repeat that process and repeat that process. And as I think I mentioned, I've done fat biopsies or tests of toxicity now on about 30 patients before and after these regimes. And roughly speaking, 50 such saunas will halve your total toxic load in the body. So the numbers come down exponentially. So another 50 will bring it down to 25%, another 50 will bring it down to 12.5%, and so on.
So that's fine for toxins and things like that, but all the work, say people like Dr. Jari Laukkanen have done from the University of Eastern Finland, which is about cardiovascular health, reduction in stroke rates, increased lifespan of something like 40% from all causes of death, except obviously road accidents and things. I mean, do those effects come with this more gentle heating?
Absolutely, because we have to look at mechanisms. Why is it that sauna is having these effects? And we now know, thanks to the work of Gerald Pollack, all about the fourth phase of water. And this is essentially, it's gel water. So, our bodies are made up of 70% water, and it's in this gel form. And to get it into this gel form, you need an energy from the outside world. And that energy from the outside world is far infrared heat. And by getting the body water into a gel form, it organizes enzyme systems in mitochondria, it reduces friction in the blood vessels, it allows blood to flow more effectively. So it just improves the biochemistry of the whole body. And this is why it's so helpful.
Right. So you also mentioned that it obviously greatly improves circulation to the capillaries. Now, I've had Raynaud disease since puberty. I have chronic chilblains every winter. This time we've had a massive cold snap, and because I've been sauning, I can really feel the difference in my capillaries. So how long after I've jumped out of the bag does that residual effect hang on for? In other words, how often should you be doing this, really?
Well, it depends on the individual person, doesn't it? Yeah. And obviously the mechanism of fire infrared is it warms you up. Yeah. And of course, if you increase your core temperature and then you put some clothes on, you will stay warm for hours afterwards. And of course, when you're in bed, then that heat will be retained. And it's a heating effect that is having the benefit on circulation. This is why it's so dangerous for people to get cold. We know that anybody who is out in the cold gets hypothermia. Everything slows down. Their immune system slows down, their circulation slows down, and they're greatly at risk of a pneumonia or an infection or a stroke or a heart attack or whatever. So keeping warm is really important for keeping well.
Right, that's really interesting. So, I mean, I've been doing it every day because I've been wanting to find out the benefits, and I did notice big benefits after 2 weeks, and I'm just hoping they get more and more, but I'm expecting the moon, really.
Well, the key thing to remember is if you are sauning as long as you are sweating a lot. And
Yes.
when you sweat, you lose minerals. Now, that's not just sodium and potassium, it's all your minerals. In fact, a sweat test is quite a good test of mineral status. So you lose your magnesium, zinc, copper, selenium, chromium, whatever. So it's very important that if you sweat a great deal, then you replace those electrolytes, not just sodium, potassium, all your minerals, with a good multi-mineral supplement.
Right, because I'm not a big fan of supplements, but you think it is worth that. And what one would you recommend?
Well, there are any number on the market. I mean, I put together a supplement called Sunshine Salt, which has got the right amount of salt, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and all the trace elements. But there are any number of them on the market. But the fact of the matter is, we should all be taking a multivitamin and a mineral daily, simply because our foods are deficient. And our foods are deficient because of modern farming methods. There's a one-way cycle of minerals from the soil, plants, animals, humans, and we throw them away. So all our soils are deficient in most of the minerals. So we should all be supplementing for that very simple reason.
Right. I hope I don't fall into that category, because I grow my own food and I grow it slowly. I don't bang on a load of artificials. So, but maybe you're right. I'll certainly have a look at your Sunshine Salt.
What I recommend you do is you get your soil tested for mineral status, and then maybe you'll see.
Right. Okay. I'll do that. I'll definitely do that. Now, another client recommended to me liposomal glutathione. And I noticed you mentioned that in your notes. Now, I had understood that this is a naturally occurring antioxidant. And as we get older, about 40% of us can decrease in its amount, decrease in our production of it. So do you think that is a supplement worth taking?
Yes. Glutathione is of proven benefit. We know it's essential for detoxing. Liposomal glutathione is rather expensive. And I give my patients just bog standard cheapo glutathione, and I do blood tests before and after, and the levels come up reliably well. So I don't think you have to spend a lot of money on liposomal. Just standard glutathione does the job fine.
Oh, that's really interesting. So, yeah, it costs a bomb.
Yes.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you very much. So with all the treatments that you've done, what has been the most dramatic with heat FIR treatment, far infrared?
Oh, gosh, that's a very good question. I mean, I usually do that treatment on the back of a package of other treatments, which includes diet, supplements, mitochondrial function, correcting thyroid, and so on. So, I would never treat a patient just with sauning. I would always do everything else first, because if you're just sauning and the sweating, you can render yourself acutely mineral deficient and make things worse. But there was one very dramatic case of a family who came to me who'd all been poisoned because their house had been treated by Rentokil with lindane for timber treatments. It was in the 1980s, when you couldn't get a mortgage for your house unless exposed beams had been treated with organochlorine chemicals. And they were all poisoned. And they said, we want to detox as fast as possible. So I said, well, the best thing to do is go to Eastern Europe to a spa there where they specialize in sauning, hot water, massage, and let's retest after that. And in 3 weeks' time, I did fat biopsies on the whole family. And when they came back after 3 weeks, they had completely got rid of their lindane. And of course, felt better as a result. It was an extraordinary outcome.
Wow, that is incredible. Lindane was used as an insecticide, I think, on carrots, wasn't it? So now has it gone, or is it still used?
It's still permitted in the sugar beet industry.
Yes.
And of course, because it's so fat soluble and it's very stable, its half-life in the environment is about 80 years. And it's a major driver of breast cancer. And guess what? The highest incidence of breast cancer in this country is Lincolnshire.
Oh, right. I'll watch it in that case. Thank you. So therefore, someone like me who is not taking a sauna because I'm chronically ill, I have been chronically ill, but I've cured my Lyme's. I'm taking it to feel better, and it has definitely improved my elasticity of my joints massively. I feel more alert. I'm really a big fan of it. So if I just find my right natural level, I watch my minerals and maybe take something like your Sunshine Salt. And would you recommend for the most of the population who want a greater health span, would you recommend that most people do it like the Finnish do? Are there more
Yes.
saunas in Finland than Finns?
Yeah, well, I think it's a very good health intervention. It's also very enjoyable. I have my own sauna here, and I live in a tribe, and we have our tribal council meetings, as it were, in the sauna. It's very sociable. It's a fantastic health benefit. And yes, if you want to live to your full potential, then a weekly sauna is an excellent idea.
Oh, weekly. Gosh, you are mild with your use. Not daily, like most Finns.
It would be lovely, but I know I don't have time to do this every day. So
Okay. So your sauna is a traditional sauna, is it? If you all get in together, yeah. And if you're heating it up for that number, that makes sense. But for most people, for an individual to heat up a sauna, I mean, a client of mine says that it takes about £10 for a 20-minute sauna. That's just the running cost. So it is expensive. And if we can get the benefits from the bags and the domes, and you don't differentiate between those, any source of FIR light you think is fantastic.
It works just as well. Not fussy about source. And yes, another reason for the sauna blankets, very efficient to run, not expensive to heat them up.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. That's great news. Come on, 2023. I will be indulging more. Well, have a lovely day. And I really appreciate your taking your time to talk to me.
One last final tip. Chilblains are also a symptom of vitamin D deficiency. And they can be completely cured with vitamin D. And the minimum dose we all need is 10,000 IU daily.
10,000 IU daily. Now, I have cod liver oil, which I've taken in massive amounts since about the age of 6. But you don't, but does that not have vitamin D in it?
It does, but the two problems with cod liver oil, the first is make sure your cod liver oil is filtered with activated charcoal, because fish are contaminated with organochlorines and with heavy metals. So all cod liver oil needs to be filtered or you'll poison yourself. The second point is cod liver oil must always be taken in balance with the omega-6 oils. And the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 should be 4 parts to 1. And if you're taking a lot of omega-3, which is cod liver oil, then you might give yourself a problem in the omega-6 department. So that needs to be balanced up with evening primrose oil or starflower oil or something like that.
There's not a product that delivers it in the perfect proportion.
Yes, there is hemp oil. That's what I give my patients. It's very inexpensive, good quality, organic, cold pressed hemp oil, and a good swig of that in the morning gives you the right proportion of omega-6 to omega-3.
I have to say, one last thing for me, your skin looks good. And do you put that down to the sauna?
I just put, well, the most damaging thing for skin is sugar.
Seriously?
And it's sugar and carbohydrates, because they create free radicals, and it's free radicals that damage skin. And so a low carbohydrate, a low sugar diet is the starting point. And then yes, oils, and then yes, saunaing.
Brilliant. I love it. Thank you very much indeed. So that's really interesting what Dr. Sarah has to say. Well, I've been using the sauna blanket for 6 weeks, and I am quite amazed at the results. I find when I get in, I turn it on, I heat it up, I test my heart rate before or after, and I find that it actually elevates my heart rate from the low 70s to the low 90s, and it increases my body temperature from between 1 or 2 degrees. Initially, when I get in the blanket, I find it really comfortable. I will listen to a podcast, I'll usually snooze off, and then I'll wake up after about 25 minutes because the heat is becoming so hot. And for about the last 10 minutes, I would say I find it uncomfortably hot. But I always believe, but maybe this is wrong according to Dr. Sarah, that the hotter you are, the more elevated body temperature, the better the results are going to be. But certainly for me, after 2 or 3 weeks, my stiffness in my joints massively decreased. When I had Lyme disease, I couldn't even get in or out of the bath unaided. Then I cured my Lyme, but I was still a little bit stiff. But now my stiffness levels have gone right back to when I was about in my 30s or 40s. I find that I sleep better. I find it very relaxing. I find it a really enjoyable experience, especially after a long day out in the garden. It really seems to relax and soothe those muscles. Another benefit is that my circulation is greatly improved. Years ago, because my circulation is so poor, because I suffer from Raynaud's disease, my GP gave me a pair of heated gloves because he was concerned, as I'm working outside a lot in the cold, that I'd actually get gangrene in my extremities. But now I find this daily boost of use of the sauna, and I'm still using it daily at the moment because I'm really enjoying the benefits. I find that they are much, much more improved. I also feel more energized. I think my skin looks plumper, and no doubt that's because of the increased blood flow to the face while you're in the sauna. And even my varicose veins have improved. I'm really pleased about that too. So my view is that these portable saunas, the sauna blankets or the sauna domes, they're much cheaper. A sauna blanket is from about £380, whereas a traditional sauna will probably be more on the lines of £10,000. And the running costs are much less. So a traditional sauna costs about £10 to heat for a 20-minute session. So really sauna blankets are much, much more accessible to most people. And like a traditional sauna, they do sort of mimic the effects that you get from moderate physical exercise. Your heartbeat improves and things like that. So if you physically cannot do physical exercise, then a sauna blanket or sauna dome can be really, really beneficial to you. So some people might say it's a bit of an indulgence to climb into a sauna blanket or a sauna dome for 50 minutes to an hour, maybe 4 times a week. But I think that the benefits that I feel so much better having climbed out of one of those, that really it's just a question of looking after your body in the same way that I try and look after it by doing regular physical exercise and by following a good diet. So I think if you really want to increase your health span, and you want to have more time to devote to your garden and other aspects of your life to enjoy, I think really it's a no-brainer.